Now you've heard them. 3 chilling tales from the heart of suburbia. Not myths, not exaggerations. Just stories people wish they could forget. But you and I both know they won't. Because once you've seen the cracks behind the curtains, once you've felt that invisible presence while walking your quiet street at night, you can't unfeel it. And here's the thing. There are more stories, more strange phone calls, more locked doors that opened anyway, more nights that ended in silence, and police tape. So if you're ready to go deeper, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and return for the next collection. Because the next story, it might not come from some far-off town. It might come from right across the street. Or maybe it's already started in your own home. The air in our home feels wrong tonight, like a breath held too long, waiting to break. My son, CJ, only 4, has been whispering about someone I can't see, someone he calls fake dad. At first, it was a childish quirk, a name that made me chuckle over dinner. But now, as the house grows still, those words crawl under my skin, cold and sharp, like a warning I didn't heed. I've watched CJ grow, his small hands clutching crayons, his laughter filling our modest home. He's always been bright, curious, but lately, his eyes dart to corners as if something lingers just beyond my sight. He's mentioned fake dad for months, a shadowy figure he describes with a shiver. When I press for details, his voice falters and he turns away, burying his face in his stuffed bear. What kind of friend hides in silence, refusing to be named? We laughed it off at first, my husband and I, calling it imagination run wild. But the laughter died when CJ's words grew heavier, like stones sinking into a dark lake. Last week, the lake stirred. Driving home from the beach, CJ sat in his car seat, staring out at the fading waves. His voice, small but clear, cut through the hum of the engine. He spoke of a fake mom, a woman who drowned in the ocean's depths, her hair tangled in the tide. My heart stuttered. We'd just left the shore, the salt still clinging to our skin. I glanced at my husband, his knuckles white on the wheel. "Is fake dad here?" I asked, forcing a smile. CJ shook his head, his eyes fixed on the window. "I don't want to talk about him," he mumbled, and the car felt colder, as if something had slipped inside with us. What kind of child invents a drowned mother? Her story whispered like a secret too heavy to hold. Days passed, but the unease grew roots. One night, as my husband and I lingered over dinner, CJ wandered to his toys, his new train track gleaming from his birthday. The clatter of dishes paused when his voice drifted from the living room, sharp with pain. That hurt. I shouldn't have listened to him. My fork froze mid-air. We found CJ rubbing his foot, his train track askew. "Who, honey?" I asked, kneeling beside him. His eyes, wide and glassy, met mine. "Fake dad told me to walk on," he said, his voice trembling. "He always says to do bad things like break my toys." My chest tightened. CJ's toys were his treasures, each one guarded fiercely. Yet here he was, confessing a voice that urged destruction. He clutched my hand, his words spilling faster. "He gets mad when I hug Daddy. He doesn't like it." Tears welled in his eyes, and I pulled him close, his small body shaking against mine. What kind of presence envies a father's embrace, its anger seeping into a child's heart? That night the house seemed to listen. As I tucked CJ in, his whispers followed me. Down the hall, then a cry pierced the dark. I rushed to his room, heart pounding, expecting to find him tangled in blankets or bruised from play. But the lights were off, and CJ lay sprawled on the floor, his bed empty. "I don't know how I fell," he sobbed, confusion clouding his face. He'd never fallen before, not once. I lifted him back, smoothing his hair. but the air felt thick like eyes were pressing against us. Something moved in that room, unseen but heavy, its will bending the world to its whim. I stayed until his breathing slowed, but sleep eluded me. The silence too loud, too alive. The next night the house spoke. A sharp thud echoed from CJ's room like a door slammed by unseen hands. My husband and I froze, dishes forgotten. I crept upstairs, the hallway stretching longer than it should. CJ's door was ajar, his small form curled in bed, seemingly asleep. I stood in the doorway, scanning for the source, when my husband's footsteps joined mine. Then CJ sat bolt upright, his eyes locked on the corner. "He said you can come," he whispered, pointing to the dark. I followed his finger and my blood turned to ice. A silhouette loomed, tall and broad, its edges bleeding into the shadows. My husband saw it too, his breath catching. He fumbled for the light, but when it flickered on, the corner was empty, the air mocking us with its stillness. What kind of thing stands in a child's room, visible yet gone? Its presence a wound in reality. We didn't wait for answers. Bags, packed in a blur, we fled to my aunt's house. The cars hum a frail shield against the night. CJ slept in the back seat, his bear clutched tight. But I felt it still, fake dad, lingering like a stain. Now at my aunt's, we wait to meet her priest, hoping for salvation. The house we left behind feels like a trap, its walls alive with something I can't name. Every creak here, every shadow, makes me wonder if it followed us. CJ's laughter is gone, replaced by a quiet that breaks my heart. I'm living a nightmare, one where my son's tormentor wears a father's name but no face. How do I fight what I can't see? How do I save my child from a shadow that calls itself family? You're walking through a forest so dark it swallows your shadow, and then you hear it. A woman's voice, soft, calling your name from the trees. You freeze, heart pounding, because you're miles from anyone who knows you. That summer in Belarus, I thought I'd found paradise in a remote village, but the woods had other plans, ones that still haunt my dreams. Let me take you back to that night, when the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and something ancient watched us from the darkness. 17 years ago, I joined two friends at a crumbling wooden house in a tiny Belarusian village, tucked deep in the countryside. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and the silence was so thick it felt alive. The house belonged to my friend's grandparents, its walls creaking with stories of decades past. We were young, carefree, soaking in the freedom of summer. By day, we'd swim in a lake that shimmered like glass, its surface hiding depths we never dared to explore. At night, we'd sit by the water, our voices barely breaking the stillness, as if the world held its breath around us. Those moments felt like a dream, but dreams can twist into something else when you're not looking. For weeks, we wandered the village, picking mushrooms in meadows and snapping photos of abandoned barns, their roofs sagging like tired shoulders. The villagers, few and weathered, watched us with knowing eyes, as if they sensed we didn't belong. One afternoon, everything changed. One of my friends, Anna, got a call, family trouble back home. She had to leave, but the only bus out came, twice a week, and she'd missed it. Desperate, she asked us to walk her to a highway 7 miles away, hoping to hitch a ride. We agreed, slinging backpacks over our shoulders, unaware that the forest was waiting. The trek began innocently enough. The sun hung low, painting the fields golden, and we laughed to keep our spirits high. But as we passed through half-abandoned villages, the air grew heavy. Empty houses stared at us, their windows like hollow eyes. I felt it then, a prickle on my neck, like someone was watching. But when I turned, there was nothing but swaying grass, We sang old songs to drown out the unease, but the notes felt fragile, swallowed by the vastness around us. By the time we reached the highway, dusk had settled, and not a single car passed. Defeated, we turned back, the path now cloaked in shadow. The forest closed in as we walked, its trees towering like silent sentinels. The road narrowed, flanked by dense pines that seemed to lean closer with every step. Have you ever felt the world shift like reality is thinning? That's what it was like. A rustle broke the silence. Not wind, but something deliberate moving through the underbrush. We stopped, breath caught in our throats. Then, another sound. Low, guttural, like a whisper carried on the breeze. Listen closely now, because this is where it gets real. My friend pointed into the trees, her finger trembling. There, between the branches, two glowing yellow eyes stared back, unblinking, impossibly large. They weren't animal eyes. Not a wolf, not a deer. They were something else, something that knew we were there. We didn't speak. We just walked faster, our footsteps crunching louder than they should. Imagine this. You're trapped in a moment where every sound, every shadow feels like it's hunting you. I tried to laugh it off, saying it was just fireflies, but my voice shook. We all knew it wasn't. The eyes followed us, gliding through the trees, never closer, but never gone. My skin crawled, as if the forest itself was alive, its roots curling beneath us, ready to pull us under. Then it happened. A voice, clear and feminine, floated from the darkness. "Come closer," it seemed to say, though the words weren't in any language I knew. My friend grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. She'd heard it too. The third friend, chatting nervously, missed it, but the two of us locked eyes, hearts racing. That voice wasn't human. It was too perfect, too hollow, like it came from the lake we'd swam in every night. We kept moving, the village lights now faint in the distance. The voice came again, softer, almost singing, weaving through the trees. Close your eyes for a second and picture this. A woman, pale as moonlight, her hair trailing like water, standing just out of sight. I didn't see her, but I felt her. Her presence was a weight pressing against my chest. My mind raced to stories I'd heard as a kid, tales of the Rulka, spirits of lakes and rivers. They were said to be beautiful, their voices luring wanderers into the water, never to return. Had we angered something by lingering too long at the lake? The thought gnawed at me, each step heavier than the last. When we finally stumbled back to the house, the warmth of the lamplight felt like a lie. We locked the door, but the forest's presence lingered, seeping through the walls. Here's a story within a story because you need to understand. My grandmother once told me about a night she'd spent near a river, hearing a woman's voice call her name. She ignored it, and the next day she found a single wet footprint on her porch. I'd laughed it off then, but now, sitting in that creaking house, I wondered if we'd brushed against the same kind of entity. The Rolka, or something older, had seen us, and it wasn't done. We never spoke of that night again, not really. We joked about crazy fireflies, but the humor was hollow. Even now, as I tell you this, I feel it, that prickle on my neck, like the forest is listening. The lake, the eyes, the voice, they're burned into me, fragments of a truth I can't fully grasp. I still dream of that road, of trees that move when I'm not looking, of a song that pulls me toward the water. If you ever find yourself in a place too quiet, too still, turn back. Some things in the dark don't just watch, they wait. You don't believe in ghosts, do you? But stay with me, because what I experienced will make you question everything. I'm an EMT, 19 years on the job, hauling stretchers through chaos, saving lives in the nick of time. But nothing prepared me for the small rural hospital in New Jersey. A place that once buzzed with life but now stood silent, its halls echoing with something else. Picture it. A building frozen in time, its walls peeling like old skin, the scent of antiseptic, lingering faintly, as if the place refused to forget its past. It was owned by a struggling hospital company, swallowed up by a bigger corporation. They shut it down piece by piece, first the medical floors, then the ER, until it was just a hollow shell. Our EMS station, tucked off the main entrance, was the only sign of life. The air was stale, thick with dust that danced in slanted moonlight. Every step on the linoleum floor echoed, sharp and lonely, like a heartbeat in a chest long stilled. This place wasn't just empty. It was waiting. I'd heard stories from older EMTs about this hospital, tales swapped over coffee at 3 a.m. They said patients used to claim they saw figures in the halls, shadows that didn't match any doctor or nurse. One guy swore a child's laugh echoed in the ICU years after the pediatric wing closed. I laughed it off. Hospitals are creepy by nature, right? But standing in that abandoned building, I wasn't so sure. The chapel's pews were coated in dust. Hymnals still open as if someone might return to sing. The ICU's monitors sat dark, their silence louder than any alarm. I wandered at 4:45 a.m. before my shift, driven by curiosity, or maybe something else. Feel the pull of the unknown, the urge to explore what you shouldn't. The hospital felt alive in its stillness, like it was watching me, daring me to step deeper into its secrets. Then it happened. I was heading back to the EMS office, the main entrance just ahead, when a sound stopped me cold. Whispers. Not the wind, not pipes creaking, but voices, soft, urgent, weaving together like a conversation just out of reach. My skin prickled as the air grew colder, the whispers sharpening, circling me like moths around a flame. They came from the waiting room, a cavernous space with rows of empty chairs, their plastic frames glinting faintly in the dark. I stood frozen, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Were they calling me, warning me? I edged closer, the whispers growing louder, clearer, yet still unintelligible, like a language I'd forgotten. Was I imagining this? I thought maybe. The security guard was on his phone, but the waiting room was empty. The moment I stepped inside, the voices stopped, swallowed by silence so thick it pressed against my chest. I punched in for my shift, but the memory of those whispers clung to me, a shadow I couldn't shake. Days later, I was back, this time with a new partner, a woman I'll call Sarah, as curious about the hospital as I was. I told her about the whispers, half expecting her to laugh, but she shared her own story. A patient she'd once transported who swore the hospital's lights flickered when no one was near. We were both drawn to the mystery, weren't we? We explored together, our footsteps echoing in the deserted halls, the air heavy with the weight of untold stories. As we neared the waiting room, Sarah stopped, her face pale. "Do you hear that?" I hadn't, but then it came. Whispers again, sharp and insistent, spilling from an old office just beyond the waiting room. The sound was alive, crawling over my skin, filling the space with a presence I couldn't see. We crept toward the office, its door ajar, revealing only a dusty desk and scattered papers. The whispers grew frantic, then vanished as we crossed the threshold. We stood there breathless, staring at each other, knowing we'd both heard it. This wasn't my imagination. Sarah's wide eyes confirmed it. Something was here, and it wanted us to know. The hospital was sold soon after, our station relocated. I never worked there again, but the memory of those whispers haunts me. I can still feel the chill of that waiting room, the way the air seemed to hum with secrets. Driving by the building now, untouched and vacant, I wonder what's still inside, waiting for the next curious soul. Do you feel it too? The pull of a place that refuses to be forgotten. Some places hold on to their past, their voices echoing long after the living have gone. That hospital is one of them. Imagine a summer day, the air thick with the scent of pine, where you step over a simple wire fence and the world you know vanishes. Not just the trees or the sky, but time itself, slipping away like a dream you can't hold. My name doesn't matter. But what happened to me when I was 9 years old on our family's ancient land does. I'm not here to convince you ghosts are real or that time can bend. I'm here to make you feel what I felt. That dizzying moment when reality frays, and you're left questioning everything. Our land, a sprawling stretch of woods and fields, has been in my family for nearly 2 centuries. It's not just dirt and trees. It's a living thing, woven with the sweat and stories of my ancestors. My grandma always said they watch over us, their spirits lingering like a warm hand on your shoulder in the dark. Feel that weight now. That unseen presence. It's comforting, isn't it? But sometimes comfort hides something else, something that doesn't belong. The land has secrets, moments where the veil between now and then thins. I never believed it until that summer, but Grandma's stories planted the seed. Let me pull you into one of her tales, a memory that clings like damp fog. Years ago, she and Grandpa were on a cruise, wandering an island trail in the Caribbean. The sun burned high, the air heavy with salt and heat. Grandpa strode ahead, his boots crunching on the path while Grandma lingered, her eyes tracing the curve of the bay. Then it happened. A girl, no older than me at the time, burst from nowhere, her bare feet slapping the earth, her voice shrill, with panic. "The ship, it's coming!" she screamed, pointing to the water. Grandma's heart lurched. She knelt, reaching for the child, but her eyes followed the girl's trembling finger. There on the horizon a ship loomed. Not a modern yacht, but a colonial relic, its sails tattered, its hull shimmering like a fever dream. Blink, and it's gone. Grandma called for Grandpa, her voice shaking, but when she turned back, the girl was gone. No footprints, no rustle of leaves, just the bay, empty and still as if nothing had ever been there. She called it a time slip, a crack in the world where past and present collide. You're standing in that crack now, aren't you? Her story wasn't just a tale, it was a warning, one I didn't heed until I crossed that fence. That summer, I was 9, maybe 10, my days filled with the reckless joy of youth. My brother, 2 friends, and I roamed our land, chasing adventure under the endless blue sky. Our guide was my brother's dog, a scruffy mutt with a nose for trouble. We trailed her through the woods, her tail a flickering beacon in the dappled light. The air buzzed with our laughter, our voices bouncing off the trees as we debated survival. "If we get lost," I said, grinning, "we'll just eat twigs and leaves." The others howled, their laughter a shield against the unknown. But the unknown was watching. We pushed through thorny brush, the kind that snags your clothes and scratches your skin, until we reached a fence. It was old, its wires rusted, sagging between weathered posts. I'd seen it before, but rarely. It marked, the edge of our land, a line we didn't cross. The dog didn't care. She slipped under, her fur brushing the wire, and vanished into the tall grass beyond. Something pulled me after her. My friends hesitated, their voices fading as I ducked under the fence, the metal cold against my back. I stood, expecting the familiar woods, the hum of insects, the distant call of my brother. But the world was wrong. The trees were gone. The dense forest, thick with oak and pine, had vanished, replaced by a wide, empty clearing. The air felt heavier, the sun too bright, like it was pressing into my skull. I blinked, my breath shallow as my eyes traced the scene. The fence gleamed, its wires taut and new, untouched by rust. 3 mesquite trees, gnarled giants in my time, stood as frail saplings, their leaves trembling in a breeze I couldn't feel. In the distance, a windmill turned, its blades whole and gleaming. Not the broken relic I knew. This was my land, but not my time. My home should have been there, its weathered porch and creaking door a constant in my life. But the clearing was empty, the ground untouched by any foundation. Feel your heart racing now the way mine did. I spun, searching for the dog, for anything familiar. But the silence was deafening, broken only by the windmill's rhythmic groan. My mind screamed that this was a dream, but my senses betrayed me. The grass under my feet was too real, each blade sharp against my sneakers. The air smelled of fresh earth, not the musty decay of the woods. I felt like I was floating, yet anchored to this alien place, my thoughts spiraling in a trance of disbelief. You're there with me, aren't you? The world blurred, my vision swimming as if I'd stared too long at the sun. Then a chill crawled up my spine, not from cold, but from something watching. Don't look back. The urge to flee surged, raw and primal. I stumbled toward the fence, my hands shaking as I ducked under the wire. The moment I crossed, the world snapped back. The forest reappeared, dense and familiar, the air thick with pine and the faint hum of insects. My friends' voices drifted through the trees, calling my name, oblivious to what I'd seen. The dog bounded toward me, her tail wagging as if nothing had happened. But I knew. Sit with that moment, the weight of it. I never told my friends, not then. How could I explain what I didn't understand? The land felt different after that, its beauty laced with a quiet menace. I'd stand by that fence sometimes, staring at the wires, willing the world to shift again. It never did. Grandma's story echoed in my mind, her voice steady as she spoke of ships and children lost to time. What if the fence wasn't just a boundary, but a door? In some cultures, they say crossing a threshold can pull you into another realm, a place where time folds like paper. I tried to recreate it, retracing my steps, but the land kept it secret. Now, close your eyes. Picture that clearing, the saplings, the windmill turning under a too bright sun. Feel the pull of the unknown, the terror of standing somewhere you don't belong. That summer, I didn't just cross a fence. I crossed time, and it left a mark I can't erase. My land is still my home, but I walk its paths knowing the past is closer than it seems, waiting just beyond the wire. The moonlight spills over the prairie, but it doesn't belong here. It's too sharp, too alive, cutting through the dark like a blade. I'm 9, pressed against the cold window of Matt's family minivan, my breath fogging the glass. We're driving home from a day of laughter, but this empty land feels wrong, as if it's watching me back. The day had been bright, filled with the chaos of childhood. Matt's parents took us, me, Matt, his younger siblings, to Discovery Zone, a neon-lit paradise of games and pizza. We laughed until our sides ached, piling into the red Chrysler minivan for the 40-minute drive back to our rough East Side neighborhood. Matt and his siblings are asleep now, their heads lolling against the seats, but I'm awake, my eyes drawn to the endless stretch of prairie outside. The road cuts through it, a thin ribbon between overgrown weeds and tangled brush, a half-mile of nothing in every direction. This land feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to step out of the dark. I've always been afraid of everything. At home, I'd flick off the light and sprint upstairs, heart pounding as if the shadows might grab me. I'd sleep with blankets pulled over my head, leaving only a sliver for air, terrified of what lurked in the dark. Horror movies, out of the question. Yet as I stare into the prairie, the moonlight reveals a figure impossibly clear. A tall, frail woman, hunched and swaying, her stringy hair dripping wet, as if she crawled from a river. Her limbs are spindly, her body fragile, but it's her movement that chills me. Slow, deliberate, like she's been walking for centuries. I can't look away. Then she stops. Her head turns, and I feel her gaze lock onto mine. My heart should race, but it doesn't. Her face isn't human, it's a horse's, its white mane grayed by mud, its eyes milky and blind, clouded by time or sickness. Yet, a voice in my mind whispers, soft and calm, "You see her. She sees you. There's nothing to fear." I blink and she's gone, swallowed by the night. What kind of creature wears a horse's face and silences a child's terror? We're from Mexico, raised in the Southwest, where stories of La Llorona haunted our bedtimes. She was the ghost who wailed for her children, a warning to stay inside. After dark, I told myself this was her, that the prairie's emptiness had conjured her from my fears. I never spoke of it, not to Matt, not to my parents. The memory faded, buried under years of growing up, until it felt like a dream I'd invented. But some dreams don't let you go. In March 2020, trapped indoors during the shutdowns, I wandered paranormal message boards, chasing stories to pass the time. One thread stopped me cold. Share your scary experiences from Mexico. I scrolled, amused, until a post made my skin prickle. A man described walking through his girlfriend's uncle's mango grove in Mexico, spotting an old woman, hiding behind trees. When his girlfriend saw her, she froze, then ran, later whispering that the woman had a white horse's head. My pulse hammered, but the next comment carved a deeper dread. Another user wrote of his father and friend, drunk and driving in Mexico, stopping to help a wet, hunched girl by the road. When she turned, her horse's face, milky-eyed, blind, sent them fleeing. How could strangers years apart see the same nightmare I did? I searched for myths, for any tale of a horse-headed woman, but found nothing. Years later at Universal Studios Horror Nights, a La Llorona haunted house unveiled her with a bloody horse's head, as if my memory had bled into the world. What kind of truth hides in a child's vision, only to be echoed by others, its face carved into the dark? Deep in the woods you see it, a towering figure, half beast, half nightmare, staring at you with eyes that shouldn't exist. You blink, and it moves. That moment in Connor Cemetery still claws at my soul, a memory that feels like a dream but cuts like reality. My husband and I thought we were just chasing ghosts in Cherokee, North Carolina, but what we found was something older, something that chose us. Let me pull you into that day when the forest turned our curiosity into dread. It was our wedding anniversary, and we'd parked our camper in the misty hills of Cherokee for over a week. My husband and I shared a love for the forgotten. Abandoned towns, crumbling cemeteries, places where time seemed to pause. Connor Cemetery, tucked off Newfound Gap Road, called to us. It was only 1.9 miles from the visitor center, but the trail felt like a secret the forest guarded fiercely. Picture this, a path swallowed by pines where every step feels like you're trespassing on sacred ground. The air was thick with the scent of wet moss and decay, and the silence pressed against my ears, broken only by the crunch of our boots. I led the way, eyes scanning for snakes or hidden roots, while my husband trailed behind, his breath steady but tense. We'd barely gone a quarter mile when the trail narrowed, the trees closing in like they were listening. Have you ever felt the world hold its breath? That's what it was like. The path was faint, barely there, as if it didn't want to be found. I paused to catch my breath, and my husband's voice broke the stillness. "Babe, look at that statue." His tone was wrong, sharp, like he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. I followed his gaze, expecting a weathered angel or a cross, something typical for a cemetery. But this was no angel. Up the trail, half hidden by branches, stood a towering figure, at least 12 feet tall. It was shaped like a deer or elk, but wrong. Its body too lean, its legs too angular, wrapped in what looked like weathered leather or petrified wood. Its head was the worst part. A snout too long, eyes too human, carved into a face that felt alive. I swear it was watching me, not just standing there. My stomach twisted. This wasn't right. No website, no guidebook had mentioned a statue here. Connor Cemetery was supposed to be small, unremarkable, just old graves and forgotten names. Yet there it was, looming, its presence heavy, like it had been waiting for us. Close your eyes and imagine this: a creature frozen in time, but its gaze follows you, daring you to come closer. My husband shifted beside me, his hand brushing mine. "I don't like this," he said, his voice low. "It's not normal." I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight with a fear I couldn't name. The statue's surface gleamed faintly, as if it drank the fading light. Then he said it. I think it blinked. My heart stopped. He swore its right ear had twitched, not like an animal's, but in a slow, unnatural arc, like a machine coming to life. We didn't wait for proof. "Run now, before it moves again." That thought screamed in my head as we turned and fled, branches snapping underfoot. The forest seemed to tighten around us, the air colder, heavier, like it was pushing us back toward the statue. Here's a story within a story because you need to feel this. My grandmother once told me about a hunter in these hills who found a deer with human eyes. He shot it, but when he approached, it was gone, leaving only a circle of ash. I'd laughed it off as a folktale, but now, with that statue's gaze burning into my memory, I wondered if we'd stumbled into the same kind of legend. Back at the car, my breath came in gasps. "That wasn't just a statue," I said, my voice trembling. My husband agreed, his face pale. He described it again, a body like an elk, but with a face that mixed camel and nightmare, its snout too sharp, its eyes too knowing. I hadn't seen it move, but I'd felt it, a pulse in the air, like the statue was more than wood or leather. It was alive, or something inside it was. We drove back to our camper in silence, the forest's shadow clinging to us. That night, I scoured the internet, desperate for answers. Nothing. No mention of a statue, no record of anything like it in Connor Cemetery. How does something that real vanish from history? The next day, we visited a Native American bookstore we'd stumbled across earlier. The owner, an older woman with eyes that seemed to see through us, listened as we poured out our story. Her silence was heavier than the forest's. She finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Some things choose who sees them. You were meant to find it." Her words sent a chill down my spine. She suggested we ask at the National Park's Visitor Center, but her tone implied we wouldn't find answers there. She knew something, but she wasn't telling. We thanked her and left, the weight of her words settling over us like fog. Back at the camper, I couldn't shake the image of that statue. Even now, as I tell you this, I feel its eyes, locked on me across miles and months. We planned to visit the visitor center, maybe even return to the trail, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't be there. Some things don't stay where you left them. The forest had shown us something ancient, something that didn't belong to our world. If you ever wander a path too quiet, too hidden, turn back, because what's waiting might not let you leave. What if one choice could rip open the veil between this world and something darker? One moment you're celebrating life, the next you're staring into the eyes of something that shouldn't exist. Dare to follow me into the abyss. My birthday was supposed to be a blur of laughter and reckless fun, but it became a descent into a reality I never knew existed. I was young, reckless, and my friend, a stoner who lived for the next high, handed me a square of LSD, promising a trip like no other. Picture it, a cramped apartment, the air thick with the scent of incense and stale beer, the walls pulsing with the hum of distant music. I didn't think twice. "Just let it dissolve on your tongue," he said, grinning like he'd unlocked the universe. The paper was rough against my lips, bitter as it melted, sending a shiver down my spine that felt like a warning I ignored. This was my night, my escape. An hour later, the world unraveled. The garden outside our building became a living tapestry, every leaf shimmering, every pebble breathing with a pulse of its own. My friend laughed, telling me about his first trip, how he saw colors bleed into sounds. "You're in for a ride," he said, but his voice sounded far away, like it was sinking into the earth. Then it hit me. People. They weren't just people anymore. Some glowed with a soothing light, their presence calming my racing heart. Others burned, flames licking from their cores, their eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. I watched, mesmerized, as the world split into light and shadow, each person a story I could feel but not read. Was this real? Or was my mind breaking apart? Then the voices came. They weren't from the garden or the music, they were inside me, pulling me backward through time. My head filled with conversations I'd forgotten. My mother, her voice trembling, talking to a neighbor about God, saying we were abandoned in a cruel world. I was 2 years old again, curled up in her lap, the words searing into me. Hundreds of memories flooded in, each one sharp, vivid, like knives carving through my skull. Every voice, every word, carried the same weight: doubt, despair, a rejection of something greater. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move as the past swallowed me whole. Feel the weight of those memories, the way they pull you under. At the bar we'd wandered to, I sat frozen, the voices looping, relentless as my friend chatted with a stranger. I knew what he'd say before he spoke. Something was wrong. The bar was alive with laughter, but I saw them, figures black as ink, with glowing red eyes perched beside people like vultures. The air grew thick, pressing against my chest, the smell of beer and sweat mixing with something acrid, like burning sulfur. I felt myself slipping, my thoughts, my soul being pulled from my body. It was like drowning in a sea of shadows, my identity fading, my mind fraying at the edges. I was losing myself. I remembered a story my cousin told, about a night he took too much and saw things that followed him home. Was this what he meant? Then it spoke. A voice, clear and warm, cut through the chaos. "Leave this place. Something bad is about to happen. You don't belong here, my son." In perfect Spanish, my native tongue, it felt like it came from my very core. The bar's noise faded, the shadows recoiled, and my heart steadied. I grabbed my friend, shouting, "We need to go." He laughed, thinking I was tripping, but then a bottle flew past us, shattering against the wall. Chaos erupted, screams, fists flying, drunk patrons turning the bar into a battlefield. We ran, my friend's face pale, his earlier bravado gone. The night air was sharp, cutting through the haze in my lungs, the streetlights blurring into streaks of gold. How did I know? He kept asking, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying that voice, its warmth, its certainty. As the LSD faded, the world snapped back, too clear, too real. For the first time, I felt awake, like I'd been sleepwalking my whole life. See the truth in that moment, the clarity that changes everything. I knew it was more than a drug. It was a glimpse of something greater, something I'd ignored too. Long a week later, alone in my room, I knelt. The floor was cold, the silence heavy, but my heart burned with a need I couldn't name. I prayed, asking for a sign, someone to guide me to that voice, that light. If you're real, show me. Next evening, a knock at the door. A neighbor I barely knew stood there smiling. God bless you, I'm hosting a Bible reading, come join us. My eyes stung, the air electric with a truth I couldn't deny. That night changed me. I'm not perfect, but I'm different, grounded, alive, tethered to something bigger. Don't chase the abyss, it's not worth what you'll find. Picture a house that knows your name, its walls pulsing with the lives it's held for over a century. You step inside, and the air shifts, as if someone's watching from the shadows. I was a teenager when I first felt it, alone in my uncle's Victorian mansion, a place built by my great-grandfather in the 1890s. This isn't just a ghost story, it's a warning. The house doesn't forget its family, and it doesn't let strangers settle in easily. Feel the chill now, the weight of unseen eyes. My uncle's family had called that 3-story Queen Anne home for generations. It's gabled. Roofs and stained glass windows gleamed with pride, but beneath the beauty lay a history of loss. In the early 1900s, relatives died within those walls. Some slipped away quietly, others burned with scarlet fever or typhoid. The house held their final breaths, their whispered prayers. By the 1970s, it passed to strangers, but my uncle, a successful architect, reclaimed it in the 90s. He thought he was coming home, but the house had other plans. Let me take you to the moment it began. The day my uncle moved in, the house stirred. Kitchen cabinets swung open in empty rooms, their hinges groaning in the silence. Footsteps echoed on the oak floors, heavy and deliberate, when no one was home. Listen closely. Can you hear them? The strangest part came at night. Sharp knocks. On the front door, loud enough to jolt you awake. My uncle would stumble downstairs, heart pounding, only to find the porch empty, the night still. One night, it wasn't just a knock. The next morning, his father called. His great-uncle, a boy who'd once run through those halls, had died hours before, right as the door rattled. Coincidence? Or something more? I didn't know these stories when I agreed to house sit. I was in my late teens, thrilled by the idea of a massive Victorian mansion to myself. The place was a palace, towering ceilings, a sprawling backyard pool, chandeliers that caught the light like stars. But at night, it transformed. The house came alive. Old family portraits stared from the walls, their eyes glinting in the dim glow of antique lamps. Creaky floorboards whispered secrets, and the air grew thick like the house was holding its breath. I loved the pool, but I dreaded the darkness. You'd dread it too. One night, it found me. I was on the second floor getting ready for bed. The dogs sprawled across the room. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the night outside. Then they heard it first. The dogs shot upright, ears pricked, eyes locked on the hallway. My stomach twisted. I tried to laugh it off, probably just the wind, but their low growls said otherwise. And then I heard it. Footsteps, heavy and slow, thudded from the third floor above. Each step was deliberate, like someone pacing with purpose. My breath caught as the sound descended the stairs, closer, closer, until it reached the second floor. Freeze with me now. I stared at the open doorway, expecting a shadow, a figure, anything. But the footsteps stopped, halfway down the stairs, and the silence that followed was worse. It pressed against my chest, heavy and alive. I didn't sleep that night, my eyes darting to the hallway, waiting for the steps to return. Let me pull you into another layer of this house's memory. Years later, my uncle sold the place to downsize. The new owner seemed charmed by its history, unaware of what lingered. A month in, he called my uncle, his voice shaky. "Did anything strange ever happen here?" My uncle chuckled, admitting to the footsteps, the knocks. The owner's story spilled out. He'd hired painters for the 3rd floor, leaving them to work while he ran errands. When he returned, they were outside, pale and refusing to go back. One painter, alone on the 3rd floor, felt a hand grip his shoulder, firm and cold. He spun around expecting a coworker, but the room was empty. Feel that touch now, the phantom weight. The owner's brother had a similar fate. He stayed the night, sleeping on the 3rd floor. In the morning, the owner found him on the 1st floor couch, eyes wide. "I'm not sleeping up there again," he said. While folding clothes, he'd felt a hand on his shoulder, gentle but unmistakable. He turned, heart racing, but no one was there. The 3rd floor was the heart of it, a place where the house's past refused to rest. You're standing there now, aren't you? The air is thick, the shadows too deep, and something brushes your shoulder. My uncle laughed it off when he told the owner, "That's just our family welcoming you, they'll get used to you." But I saw the flicker in his eyes, the unease he hid. The house wasn't welcoming, it was claiming. Close your eyes and picture it. The Victorian looms under a moonless sky, its windows like eyes that never blink. The 3rd floor glows faintly, not with light, but with presence. Feel the footsteps above you, the hand on your shoulder. My family's ghosts are still there, pacing the halls, touching the living to remind them. This house remembers, and it never lets go. The attic window rattles in the Oregon wind, but the cold isn't just from the weather. It's 2018, and I've just moved into a house older than my great-grandparents, its walls whispering secrets I don't yet believe. I'm a college student, broke and skeptical, laughing off ghost stories as campfire fluff. But this place, built in 1840, feels alive, its shadows too heavy, its silence too sharp. Central Oregon's vastness swallowed me when I arrived, but the rent was a steal. The house, a creaking relic, housed 12 of us, mostly girls who shared knowing glances. They warned me about odd occurrences, doors ajar, objects misplaced, but I shrugged it off, my logic a shield against their tales. The attic, my new home, was a triangular nook, its slanted ceiling pressing close. At first, the strangeness was subtle. The 2nd-story balcony door would stand wide open each morning, its deadbolt still locked, as if inviting something in. Chairs from the dining room appeared on the landing above, arranged neatly, though no one admitted to moving them. I blamed my roommates, their pranks a convenient excuse, but the house's stillness began to gnaw at me, like a gaze I couldn't meet. What kind of home rearranges itself while you sleep? Thanksgiving brought solitude. My roommates scattered to their families, leaving me alone in the sprawling house. I woke to a chill that seeped into my bones, the air sharp with frost. Barefoot, I padded downstairs to the thermostat, its buttons stiff under my fingers. Then, voices stopped me cold. 2 women, their words soft but clear, echoing from nowhere. "He's coming," one said, her tone heavy with warning. My hand froze, heart thudding. I searched every room, every closet, but the house was empty, its silence mocking my panic. whose voices linger in an empty house, speaking of someone who never arrives. I spent the day pacing, blaming exhaustion, but the words clung to me, sharp as broken glass. That night, curled on the living room couch with my roommate's kitten purring in my lap, I felt the air shift. The kitten stiffened, her eyes locked. On the window, where an inky shadow pressed against the glass, not a reflection but a presence staring back. I held my breath, pinned by its gaze, until it slid across the pane and vanished. My friend rushed over when I called, her presence a frail anchor, but the house felt different now, awake and watching. The days that followed grew heavier. In the basement, a maze of zigzagging halls we called the catacombs, I sensed eyes tracking my every step, their weight pressing against my spine. One night a roommate screamed, claiming she saw a man in those halls, his form flickering before he vanished. The police found nothing, their flashlights useless against the dark. In my attic room, the ceiling seemed to breathe, its wood groaning as if fingernails scraped above my head, slow and deliberate. Objects disappeared, keys, books, a necklace, only to reappear in wrong places. My roommate's fish tank, once vibrant, turned still. Every fish dead overnight, their eyes clouded like the house's secrets. Whispers wove through the walls at night, their words unintelligible but urgent, as if the house itself spoke. One afternoon, my roommates climbed out a window that wouldn't lock, only to find it sealed shut when they tried to return. They pounded on the glass for hours until I arrived, opening it effortlessly, their faces pale with questions I couldn't answer. What kind of house traps its own, its will-bending reality? When the lease ended, we fled, vowing never to return. I packed my life into boxes, the attic's oppressive air clinging to me like damp cloth. Yet even now, the house pulls me back. On walks, I find myself standing outside staring at the attic window, its glass reflecting a shadow that shouldn't be there. I swore I'd never believe in ghosts, but this house rewrote my truth, its gaze a chain I can't break. What lives? In those walls, and why does it call me still? You're alone in a quiet house and then you hear it. Your father's voice calling your name from upstairs. But he's not home. And the voice keeps repeating, exactly the same, like a broken record. That night, I learned that some things can wear the face of someone you love, but they're not human. I was just a teenager, left alone in our old house thinking I could handle a few hours by myself. But what came for me in the dark still haunts every shadow I see. Let me take you into that night when my home became a trap. It was a chilly evening, and my parents were out at some event with friends. I'd been tasked with watching the house, a sprawling two-story place that always felt too big when I was alone. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel alive, like it's watching you? That's how it was. I shrugged off the unease, grabbed my keys and drove to a nearby Subway for a quick dinner. The fluorescent lights of the shop felt like a shield, but back home the darkness waited. I settled on the living room couch, the TV's hum drowning out the quiet. The sandwich sat heavy in my stomach and I tried to focus on the screen, but the house seemed to breathe around me, its walls holding secrets I didn't want to know. Then it started. A soft thud from upstairs, like someone stepping lightly on the floorboards. I froze, my thumb hovering over the remote. The TV's glow cast long shadows and I strained to listen. Another step, deliberate, moving across the hallway above. My heart kicked into overdrive. I hit pause, the silence rushing in like a flood. The steps stopped, but the air felt thicker, charged with something I couldn't see. You're not alone, a voice in my head whispered. I shook it off, telling myself, it was just the house settling. I'm not one to scare easily. I'm built solid, ready to fight if I have to. But the thought of checking upstairs alone made my skin crawl. Still, I grabbed a kitchen knife, its weight cold in my hand, and climbed the stairs. The hallway was dark, the light switch too far to feel safe. Every door looked like it could hide something. I checked each room, my parents' bedroom, the guest room, even under the beds and in the closets. Nothing. The house was empty, just as I'd left it. Why did it feel like I was being watched? I exhaled, the tension easing, and headed back. Downstairs. The TV waited, its paused screen a small comfort. I locked every door, checked every window, and told myself I was overreacting. Back in my room, I propped myself on the bed, the knife within reach, and flicked on the TV again. Everything's fine, I thought. Just my imagination. Then, a new sound. A faint knock, like knuckles brushing against wood. It came from somewhere. In the house? My door? The closet? I sat up, pulse racing. The knock came again, sharper, deliberate. Someone's here. I checked the room, the hallway, every corner I could think of. Nothing. The house mocked me with its silence, but my nerves were frayed. Close your eyes and feel this. A home you know by heart, but every shadow feels wrong. I returned to my room, annoyed but shaken, and tried to settle back into the show. That's when I heard it. My father's voice calling my name. It was unmistakable. His. Deep tone, thick with an Italian accent. The way he always said my name when he wanted my attention. Come here, it said from the hallway. My blood ran cold. My parents weren't due back for hours. I waited, hoping I'd misheard. But it came again. Come here. Identical. Like a recording looped over and over. This isn't Dad. The realization hit like a punch. The voice wasn't moving, wasn't changing. It was too perfect, too mechanical. Here's a story within a story, because you need to understand the terror. My cousin once told me about a night he spent in an old cabin, hearing his sister's voice call him from the woods. He didn't follow, and the next day, he found claw marks on the door. I'd laughed it off, but now, that same dread coiled in my gut. I slammed my door shut, my hands shaking as I dragged a heavy dresser in front of it. Don't open the door no matter what. My phone was in my hand before I knew it, dialing my parents. They answered, their voices distant but real, and I spilled everything, the steps, the knocks, the voice. They called the police and I stayed barricaded, watching the door, the knife gripped tight. Every second felt like a trap, like something was waiting for me to make a mistake. The police arrived 10 minutes later, their headlights cutting through. The night, I peeked through the window, confirming it was them, then let them in. They searched the house top to bottom. Every room, every closet, every corner. Nothing. No signs of a break-in, no unlocked windows, no footprints. But I know what I heard. They patrolled the area and left, but sleep was impossible. Even now, as I tell you this, I hear that voice looping in my mind. My parents came home, their presence a small comfort, but the house felt tainted. I'm certain it was a mimic, something that could steal my father's voice and wear it like a mask. If I'd opened that door, I might not be here. The thought keeps me up at night, the what-ifs clawing at me. If you're ever alone in here, a voice you trust don't answer. Some things know exactly how to lure you in. You're alone in your backyard at midnight, the world silent except for the rustle of leaves. Then a voice, louder than thunder, speaking words you can't comprehend, cuts through the dark, aimed right at you. It happened to me 2 months ago, a night I can't shake, no matter how hard I try. My backyard, a mundane slab of concrete framed by bushes, became a stage for something I can't explain. Feel the air grow heavy now, the way it did for me. This isn't just a story. It's a glimpse into the unknown that still haunts my sleep. My house sits in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where the loudest sound at night is a distant car or the hum of crickets. The backyard is nothing special, just a cement driveway edged with scraggly bushes and a few tired trees. I'd take my dog out there for a quick break when a full walk wasn't in the cards. He's a calm mutt, never one to bark at shadows, content to sniff and wander. That night, around 11:30 p.m., the air was cool, the sky a deep velvet punctured by stars. Picture it. The stillness, the ordinary. I stood by the back door scrolling on my phone, its battery blinking at 2%. The dog padded through the grass, nose to the ground, oblivious to the world. Then it hit. A voice exploded from the darkness. It wasn't human, not in any way I could grasp. Loud, like it was blasted through a megaphone, it filled the yard, vibrating in my chest. Freeze with me now. The words, if they were words, poured out in a torrent, sharp and deliberate in a language I'd never heard. Not English, not Spanish, not anything I could place. It was guttural yet precise, like an ancient chant from a creature that knew my name. For 25 seconds, it screamed at me, each syllable a hammer against my skull. Hear it in your mind, relentless, unstoppable. My dog froze. His ears pinned back, then erupted into barks, wild and desperate, aimed at the empty air. My brain scrambled. What is this? For a split second I thought to record it, but my phone was useless, its screen dimming in my hand. A prank, maybe. Speakers from the retirement home next door. But in 20 years I'd never heard so much as a TV from their windows. And then it moved. The voice shifted, sliding across the yard like a predator pacing its cage. One moment it boomed from the far corner, 50 feet away. The next it was close, 10 feet, maybe less, its power rattling my bones. Feel your heart pound, the way mine did. No speaker could do that. No human could. The dog's barks turned frantic. His eyes locked on something I couldn't see. His body trembling with rage or fear. Let me pull you into a moment from years ago. A story my friend once told. He was camping in the desert, miles from nowhere, when a sound woke him. Not a voice, but a hum, low and unnatural, circling his tent. He swore it felt alive, like it was probing his mind. He never saw anything, but the memory stuck. A warning of things beyond our world. My backyard felt like that desert. The voice wasn't just sound, it was presence. Heavy and malicious, as if it could crush me with a thought. I stood rooted, my breath shallow, waiting for it to stop. When it did, the silence was worse. A sigh, void that swallowed the night. The dog whimpered, pressing against my leg, his fur bristling. You're there with me, aren't you? The yard was empty, the bushes still, the trees casting jagged shadows under the moonlight. But something had been there. Something massive, its voice hinting at a form I was grateful not to see. I rushed inside, locking the door, my hands shaking as I checked every window. Sleep didn't come that night. My mind replayed the voice. Its cadence burned into me like a brand. I told a friend the next day, expecting him to laugh. He didn't. That was demonic, he said, his voice low. Or maybe alien. Both ideas chilled me. Alien or demon, it felt like power, raw, ancient and angry. Close your eyes and imagine it. The backyard, your safe haven, now a doorway to something vast and unknowable. Hear the voice again, its weight pressing against you. I go out there still, but never at night, not without checking the shadows. My dog avoids the far corner now, his nose twitching at something I can't sense. What was it? A visitor from another world? A spirit trapped in mine? All I know is it saw me, spoke to me, and left me with a truth I can't escape. We're not alone. and some things in the dark are far stronger than us. Some nights feel different. The air is still, the clock ticks louder, and somewhere in the dark, something waits. Tonight is one of those nights, not the kind for laughter or sleep, but the kind where shadows move just outside your vision, and the silence feels too heavy to trust. We've gathered the perfect stories for a night like this. Tales soaked in fear, rooted in truth, and stitched together with screams that never reached help in time. These aren't bedtime stories. They're the ones that keep you awake. So if the lights are off and the night feels strange, lean in. Because what you're about to hear might not just unsettle you, it might stay with you. Even when the video ends, even when the house goes quiet again.